Welcome to our deep dive into All the Colors of the Dark. This is a 2024 novel by Chris Whitaker.
Yeah.
And, you've shared a few chapters with us, and we're hoping to just unearth the most fascinating bits
I hope.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
The structure itself is intriguing.
Oh.
We've got regular text alongside these italicized sections.
Right.
What do you make of that?
I think it's like the author's kind of playing with us a little bit. Is it a shift in time, or is it a change in perspective, or something else entirely?
Right.
It definitely adds a layer of mystery
It does.
and makes you pay close attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in Monta Clare,
Mm-hmm.
This seemingly picturesque town,
Mm-hmm.
but as in any good story.
Mm-hmm.
There's darkness simmering beneath the surface.
Right.
And then we've got these characters like Patch and Saint,
Yeah.
these childhood friends bound by a shared trauma.
Right.
What stands out to you about them?
Well, what's fascinating is how their childhood bond is both a strength and a potential weakness. You
Wow.
can sense Saint's growing feelings for Patch,
Yeah.
which adds this whole other layer of tension.
Absolutely.
And then Patch with his eye patch and his artwork,
Right.
he's trying to make sense of what happened to him, but his memories are fragmented.
Right. And speaking of fragmented memories,
Uh-huh.
the novel throws us not one but two mysteries.
Right.
We have Patch's own abduction years ago, and then the disappearance of Grace, a girl he was held captive with.
Right.
It's like a puzzle box.
Yeah.
With the author scattering clues, a yellow hairband,
Right.
mentions of Grace Falls, even purple honey.
Yeah, and those clues are almost like red herrings in a way, because
Are.
at the same time we're dealing with these unreliable narrators.
Yeah.
Can we trust what Patch remembers? Can
No.
we trust the accounts of these other characters?
Mm.
It keeps you constantly questioning what's real and what's not.
Okay, but here's what I find really interesting. There's this recurring theme of seeing,
Mm-hmm.
both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Obviously, Patch with his eye patch
Right.
represents that on a surface level.
Yeah.
But don't all the characters struggle to see the truth in some way?
Absolutely. It's as if the trauma they've experienced has clouded their vision,
Yeah.
their ability to perceive reality clearly. They're blinded by their pain, their secrets.
Right.
Even the setting, the woodland, plays into this.
Oh, wow.
It's described as both beautiful and dangerous, mirroring the character's internal struggles.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So it's not just the characters, it's the atmosphere itself
Yeah.
that's reflecting this inability to see clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Eli Aaron, this looming figure
Right.
connected to the missing girls.
Yeah.
He's like the boogeyman, adding to the overall feeling of unease.
What's chilling about Eli Aaron is that we mostly hear about him through others.
Yeah.
We don't get his perspective directly
Right.
in these chapters, which makes him even more menacing, and it leaves you wondering, what are his motives?
Right.
Is he a product of the same cycle of violence that he perpetuates?
It's almost like he represents these unseen forces
Yeah.
that are shaping these characters' lives,
Mm-hmm.
the trauma that they're constantly trying to escape.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got these complex characters, unreliable memories,
Mm-hmm.
a setting that reflects their internal struggles.
Right.
This boogeyman figure.
Yeah.
What does it all add up to?
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway for you in these opening chapters?
For me, it's about the power of perception.
Okay.
This novel is constantly asking us to question what we see, what we remember, and what we believe. It's suggesting that truth is multifaceted and often obscured by our own biases and experiences.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful message, isn't it?
It is.
It forces you to engage with the story on a deeper level, to become an active participant in uncovering the truth.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's not just a passive reading experience.
Right.
It's an invitation to think critically and challenge our own assumptions.
And as you continue reading, keep this in mind.
Okay.
Pay close attention to how the motif of seeing evolves and how the author uses language to manipulate your perception of reality.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be a wild ride.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to keep reading.
Mm-hmm.
We left off talking about how All the Colors of the Dark makes us question what we see and what we believe. But beyond that, what struck you about the specific details the author uses to create this atmosphere of uncertainty?
One thing that stands out is how Whitaker weaves in these almost mythical elements, like the purple honey.
Yeah.
It's introduced in Saint's childhood story, and then it pops up again later. It feels symbolic,
Right.
but of what?
It's almost like a fairy tale element, right?
Yeah.
Like hinting at a deeper magic at play. But then
Yeah.
we also have these very real very grounded details about the setting Monta Clare in the 70s.
Right.
Do you think those two elements clash or complement each other?
I think that's where the author's skill really shines.
Right.
You know, by blending the fantastical with the real, he creates this sense of unease. Like,
Yeah.
is there something truly supernatural happening?
Right.
Or are these characters just grasping at straws, trying to make sense of the chaos in their lives?
It makes you wonder if the characters themselves are trying to find meaning in these fantastical elements.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're looking for something to believe in.
And that ties back to the motif of seeing,
Yeah.
they're looking for something to illuminate the darkness,
Right.
both literally and metaphorically.
While we're on the topic of characters, we have to talk about Misty.
Yeah.
She initially seems like the typical popular girl,
Uh-huh.
but as we learn more about her past, she becomes so much more complex.
Yeah. What's interesting about Misty is that she's connected to both Patch and D. Eli Aaron.
Right.
It's like she's caught between these two forces, innocence and darkness.
Okay.
And you see her trying to break free from that to forge her own path.
Yeah, it's like she's trying to see beyond the labels that have been placed on her,
Right.
to define herself on her own terms.
Exactly.
And her involvement in the pro-choice movement adds another layer to that.
Right. It shows that she's not just concerned with her own personal drama.
Yeah.
She's aware of the larger social forces at play
Okay.
and wants to be part of something bigger than herself.
It's like she's searching for meaning and purpose
Mm-hmm.
in a world that can feel very chaotic and uncertain, especially given the time period.
Yeah.
Now, we can't forget Sammy Patch's mentor.
Right.
What did you make of their relationship? It's not your typical mentor-student dynamic.
No, it's definitely more complicated than that. On one hand,
Yeah.
you see Sammy's genuine admiration for Patch's talent,
Okay.
but there's also the sense that he might be exploiting him,
Oh.
using him for his own gain. It's a bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
And I think that's intentional.
Right.
It makes you question the motivations of those in positions of power.
And his art collection.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like every piece he acquires is a reflection of some aspect of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's trying to curate his own identity through art.
Absolutely. And it raises questions about the nature of art itself.
Okay.
Is it purely for aesthetic pleasure?
Yeah.
Or can it be a way to grapple with deeper issues to confront our own darkness?
It's like the art in this novel is another way for the characters to see themselves and the world around them.
Right.
And that brings us back to the central question of the book.
Yeah.
How do we make sense of a world that's full of darkness and uncertainty?
Right.
Is it through art, through human connection, through searching for the truth no matter how elusive it may be?
Those are some big questions.
They are.
And I think the novel does a brilliant job of exploring those questions without offering easy answers.
And that's what makes it so compelling.
Exactly.
It challenges you to think critically, to engage with the characters and their struggles, and to draw your own conclusions.
As we move into the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how all these elements, the characters, the symbolism, the setting, come together in the end. Do you feel like the novel ultimately offers a sense of hope, or is it more ambiguous than that?
That's a great question. And I think the answer might depend on your own interpretation.
Right.
But let's delve into that further in the final part of our deep dive. We've been unpacking some pretty heavy themes, trauma and memory and perception.
Yeah.
But as we head into the final stretch of our deep dive into All the Colors of the Dark, I'm curious, is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Right.
Does the novel offer any sense of hope?
It's not a straightforward happily ever after kind of hope,
Okay.
but there are definitely glimmers.
Okay.
Take Patch's art, for example.
Yeah.
Yes, it's born from darkness, a way for him to process his trauma, but it also becomes a bridge to connect with others, especially the families of the missing girls.
Yeah.
There's something really powerful in that shared experience of grief and remembrance.
It's almost like his art becomes a way to reclaim those lost lives,
Yeah.
to make sure they're not forgotten. And it's not just Patch.
Mm-hmm.
Think about Saint.
Right.
She's driven by this relentless pursuit of justice.
Yeah.
But ultimately, doesn't she find a different kind of peace in becoming a guardian, a protector of sorts?
What's interesting about Saint is that her idea of justice kind of evolves.
Okay.
At first, it's all about catching Eli Aaron,
Right.
making him pay.
Yeah.
But as she digs deeper, she realizes that true justice is much more complex than that. It's about protecting the vulnerable,
Yeah.
preventing future harm. Her decision to become a guardian suggests a shift from vengeance to a more nurturing form of justice.
It's like she's finally able to see beyond her own anger and pain
Right.
and channel that energy into something positive. And you know what else struck me as hopeful?
What's that?
The ending, where Saint leaves that box of memories for Grace's family.
Yeah.
It's a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
But there's also a sense of closure, of honoring Grace's memory.
That act of leaving the box is significant.
Okay.
It suggests that while the past can't be changed, it can be acknowledged and shared.
Right.
And in doing so, maybe some healing can begin. You know, it's like Saint is saying,
Yeah.
we will remember you, Grace. Your story matters.
And it's not just about remembering the victims. It's also about recognizing the strength and resilience of those left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how Charlotte Patch's daughter
Yeah.
embraces her own artistic talent. It's a subtle echo of Patch's journey,
Yeah.
suggesting this cycle of healing and creativity being passed down.
What's beautiful about that image is that it suggests a breaking of the cycle of trauma.
Okay.
Yes, Charlotte has inherited the weight of her father's past,
Right.
but she's also inherited his creative spirit, his ability to find beauty in darkness.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the most difficult circumstances, there's always the potential for growth and transformation.
And let's not forget the natural world, which plays such a prominent role throughout the novel.
Right.
The descriptions of the woodland, the lake, the wildflowers. It's like nature itself offers a sense of solace and renewal even amidst the darkness.
The way that the author uses natural imagery is fascinating.
Okay.
On one hand, nature can be harsh and unforgiving,
Right.
mirroring the violence and trauma that the characters experience.
Yeah.
But it's also a source of beauty and wonder, a reminder that life goes on, that there's always hope for new beginnings.
Yeah.
You know, think about the butterfly weed that Grace describes,
Right.
how it represents resilience and the ability to thrive even in harsh conditions.
It's like a visual metaphor for the character's own journeys.
Right.
They've been through so much.
Yeah.
But they're still standing, still finding ways to create beauty and connect with each other.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm.
what's the final thought you want to leave our listener with?
I think All the Colors of the Dark is ultimately a story about the complexities of the human experience, you
Yeah.
know. It doesn't shy away from the dark side of human nature,
Right.
the pain and the trauma that we inflict on each other.
Yeah.
But it also reminds us that even in the darkest of places, there's always the possibility of hope, healing, and connection. As you continue reading, pay attention to the subtle ways the author weaves together these contrasting elements.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, what are the colors of your own darkness?
Yeah.
And how can you find the light within them?
That's such a powerful question.
Yeah.
And I think it perfectly captures the essence of this novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a story. It's an invitation to explore our own inner landscape,
Right.
to confront our shadows, and to search for the beauty that often lies hidden within them.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into All the Colors of the Dark.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it's inspired you to delve deeper into the novel and to discover your own interpretations of its rich layers of meaning. Until next time, happy reading.